Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar. We'll then run for the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. So we have pretty typical late summer conditions, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s, in around average, maybe above average for some in the south and east. Some precipitation around, but not massive deluges by any means, and plenty of dry and sunny weather, so a real mix over the next 5 days. We'll then have a look at the various mid to longer range, look at the GFS, GM, ECMWF and the various ensembles, as well looking at what's going to be happening towards the end of meteorological summer and the start of meteorological autumn as we head into September. Now, the last few videos we have been looking at the potential for high pressure to really control our weather. Some runs have it bringing very hot late summer heat, others are bringing some cool early autumnal cold weather, really chilly weather, temperatures into the mid to low teens, especially in the north. And we're seeing a signal today of that continuing in that high pressure theme, and it does look likely we're going to be seeing some blocking towards the end of August, into the early autumn, and it could even become a northern blocking. Now, northern blocking is very weird at the end of August, or end of summer into early September, because it doesn't give us anything that cold, but it does stop us seeing anything really warm, and it starts to make us feel a little bit autumnal. So we're not expecting anything majorly cold, but potentially some chillier weather. But also, if that block is slightly further south than some of these models are showing, it could also be very warm. We're in this real sort of tipping point where if this blocking is slightly further northwards, it's very chilly. If it's slightly further southwards, we can still be very hot. So as we'll see today, some of the models are showing very, very different things, even though the overall setup is very similar. And we'll see that similarly on the ensemble charts as well. Some going real hot to 30-degree weather, others showing temperatures in the mid-teens, quite chilly for this time of year. So we'll just have to see how it does play out. But a high pressure signal, which does mean precipitation, should be relatively low. But as we know, with big blocks around, big areas of high pressure, we can always see little sneaky lows sort of moving in. So we'll still have to keep an eye on that in the future. So, do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe. And remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So if you start a live radar, you can see I'm recording this around 3 PM. And we do have low pressure to the north and the west, a weather front moving in. And it's a bit squally along this weather front. We have been keeping an eye on it. You can see these lines. And these are small little squall features. They have diminished. Earlier today, they were a little bit stronger if we do run it back a little bit. So you can see slightly heavier pulses along that squall line. But it is diminishing in intensity. Still some heavy showers along this, heavy precipitation, and strong gusty winds within this as well as it moves southwards, but it should sort of disintegrate. To the southwards and eastwards of this weather front is still very warm and dry, with upper air temperatures in and around average, if not slightly above average. Further northwards, it is cooler with more of an autumnal feel. We're getting to this time of year when the jet stream is starting to power up, and those low pressure systems that have been sitting over Greenland and Iceland over the summer, as the jet stream seasonably moves northwards, you can see it's starting to shift southwards. Again, the storm track, the low pressure track, is starting to shift southwards, and we are starting to see these low pressure systems starting to properly impact us, and we could see that continue over the next couple of weeks. All depends, as I said, on the positioning of the blocking. If we look at the 2 meter temperatures, can see to the south of that weather front, it is still pretty warm and dry. You can see temperatures into the low to mid 20s. Many areas seeing around 20 to 25 degrees. To the north of that, more towards the low 20s, high teens. So nothing cold, but nothing exceptionally warm, just typical summer, late summer sort of conditions. So if we go over to the UKV, have a look what that is showing over the next 5 days in terms of precipitation and temperature. You can see the weather front earlier this morning, and you can see on the corner around 3 PM, you can see the weather front has a lot more sort of scattered and sort of fading away. Beyond that, through this evening, it just continues to move through, and just a bit of cloud and a few showers around, but nothing too crazy at all. As we head through Sunday, you see some thicker cloud in the south, so maybe some heavier rain across northern England, and through Sunday evening we see some heavier precipitation maybe move through in the south. Again, bit of uncertainty exactly what's happening through that, through late Sunday into early Monday. Bit of a low pressure system there, bringing some heavy showers and maybe some persistent rain for a time for eventually clearing through. We're just going to general sunshine and showers, areas of precipitation moving through potentially the early hours of Wednesday, and just on and off showers and sunshine. You can again see there through Thursday, perhaps some heavy thundery rain in the south and the east, because if we do look at the pressure charts, you can see small little low pressure systems moving there as we do start to see higher pressure trying to build back in. Again, you look at the upper air temperatures, it's still pretty warm in the south and the east, and that's why it's still possible. We see mid to high 20s there, but we do have big temperature clashes. And this is why I said, if we do get a bit of a northerly flow, that blocking further northwards and westwards, we could see pretty chilly air, 0 degrees there, drifty HPA. But if it's further southwards and eastwards, you can see still 15, 16 degrees moving up from the south and the east. So we can see big temperature contrasts over the next couple of weeks. We can see a lot of chopping and changing between the models, as we are, as I said, getting to that time of year where cooler, chilly air masses are starting to form to our north, and starting to become readily available to move southwards. But we also still have warmth and heat across the near continent and across parts of Spain, France, and the Mediterranean that with any southerly flow would come flooding back in. So if you look at the 2 meter temperatures, you can see this afternoon those temperatures rising widely to the low to mid 20s to the south of that weather front behind it, more mid to high teens, maybe touching on 20 degrees. As we move through to tomorrow, you can see those temperatures once again rising to the low to mid 20s, 20 to 25 degrees widely across England and Wales, parts of Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, back towards mid to high teens. Generally really around average for this time of year, maybe slightly above average in East Anglia. As we head through to Monday, those temperatures rising once again, perhaps low to mid 20s, so really pleasant conditions. There will be showers around, as we saw by the precipitation. There is going to be weather fronts around. Again, I wouldn't say that too literally because it is chopping and changing by each run. So we're going to really have a look at this at a day or two ahead, because it is a lot of it is convection based, which is chopping and changing, as I said, but still generally warm. We see sunshine and dry weather, and as we head into Tuesday, potentially even 26, 27 degrees as those warm air masses try to move up from the south, and as we head into Wednesday, could even be getting up towards 30 degrees in East Anglia, but across northern Scotland, mid to maybe low teens as we have cooler air coming in from the north, and you can see this quite distinctly through early hours of Thursday, potentially 21 degrees in London, but across Scotland, Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, mid to high single digits, much cooler. Would feel quite chilly and cold overnight, and you couldn't even rule out a few spots getting close to those low single digits. 4 degrees there across Northern Ireland, and I would probably guess that areas over the highlands of Scotland would get towards freezing. So you can see the first hints of some cooler autumnal conditions potentially arriving. And as I said, we are on that tipping point. Within the next sort of month or so, we are going to reach that step change where we go from average conditions of low 20s in the south to suddenly mid-teens, and then slowly petering off towards winter. So we'll have to see exactly how it does play out. Now, if we do go over to the GFS and see what that is showing over the next couple of weeks, you can see low pressure pushing in at the moment. You can see that storm track is starting to push further southwards. Low pressure has been sat over parts of Greenland and North Pole in general, but is starting to shift further southwards, and you can just see the low pressure is in control over the next couple of days, but it's sort of centered over the top of us. So that's why it will still be sunny and warm in the south and east, and there will still be plenty of dry weather, and it's mainly shower activity because the centre of the low is further away. But you can see in around 5, 6 days time, we do see higher pressure build back in. But it's big uncertainty, because what do you see? The high pressure extending towards the North Pole. We see northern blocking, and it's very uncertain. You see cooler air is trying to flood into Scandinavia, but there's also very hot air across the near continent. Look at the upper air temperatures. You can see the 0 degree isotherm, maybe even the -5 degree isotherm moving into parts of Scandinavia, but the 15 degree isotherm is across Italy and parts of France, potentially pushing into the UK. And this is why we have big uncertainty, because this high pressure sits to the north, trying to drag in a northerly wind. We'd go into this cooler air mass. It wouldn't be bitterly cold by any means, it'd just be below average. But if it sits further eastwards and draws up more of a southerly or southeasterly flow, then we'd suddenly be tapping into this very hot air, and we would be going into the mid to high 20s, low 30s. And this is why we are seeing a lot of chopping and changing, and why on the cards at the moment we could be going pretty chilly to start September, but we could also going to be going very hot as well. Now, if we do continue beyond that, this latest GFS actually turns us chilly temporarily. You can see the 5-degree isotherm moves there, even the 0-degree isotherm comes into parts of northeast England, but eventually, right towards the end of the run, the orientation of the high pressure eventually starts to bring in hotter air from the south and eastward, just because the tilt of those isobars are from more of a southeasterly instead of a northeasterly, and that's why this time of year wind directions and exact positioning of the high pressure can make such a big difference. So as I said, we'll have to see how it does play out. At the moment, I definitely think there is going to be some cooler weather, but I think there's going to be some warmer weather. There's going to be hot days coming, as I said, in perhaps 4 or 5 days' time, into the middle of next week, where we still have a warmer air mass potentially coming over to the southeast. We could see mid to high 20s, maybe even 30 degrees, but there is going to be a lot of chopping and changing. There's going to be some days where we feel like we're in the middle of the summer, other days where we're going to feel like autumn is really coming. So if we do go to the GEM, see how that does compare. If we do have a look at those upper air temperatures, you can see generally westerly, chilly sort of air masses moving in, but also equally some warmer air masses pushing into the southwest, southeast, and that's why we can see mid-20s, maybe high 20s into the middle of the next coming week. Beyond that, low pressure does dominate before high pressure starts to try and build in. But on this latest GEM run, we see the high pressure much further northwards, and what do we see? Low pressure sat over us, northern blocking. The low pressure track is pushed southwards with higher pressure replacing it over Iceland. This would be a very cold and potentially snowy sort of scenario in 2 or 3 months' time. But because we are, as I said, towards the end of August, start of September, it is still generally warm air mass. You can see, as I go back to the entry VHP temperatures, it would be warm, but because it's a low pressure base, there probably would be a lot of showers and potentially thunderstorms within it. But similarly, cool air mass to our north, very hot air still lingering to our south. It's all about what sort of air mass gets dragged in from the high pressure block. Over the next 5 to 7 days, it generally looks like we're going to be seeing some Atlantic air, but also some very warm air, potentially in around 4 or 5 days' time. But it's beyond 7 to days, that 7 to 14 day time frame, where we're seeing a lot of chopping and changing, potentially switching between air masses very, very quickly. So we do have a look at the ECMWF, see how that does compare over the next 10 days. Again, low pressure running in at the moment. Eventually, high pressure tries to build back in, and it does it successfully, but we see a little low pressure system get trapped underneath it. As I said, that's always the uncertainty. There's generally a big high pressure block around, but low pressure is to our north and east, and will be dragging in showers, and generally a northerly airflow. Look at the upper air temperatures. Very cool air, trying to push in from the north, especially across Scotland. You wouldn't be surprised to see temperatures getting to only low teens in the day, maybe even high single digits over higher ground. And overnight, those temperatures in the low single digits, if not towards freezing. But look to our south, the 15-degree isotherm is across parts of the Alps and parts of central France toward Paris. That's not too far away either. And that's why I said, even though this run is going for a chilly northerly flow, you look at the temperature deviation, we're firmly in the blues. These oranges and reds are not too far away. A very slight change in wind direction, slight change in orientation of the high pressure. Suddenly we'd be dragging this very hot air. And this is the thing we get with northern blocking. Very, very subtle orientation shifts can make drastic differences at the surface. This is why some of these ensemble members and some of these charts are showing colder weather coming, but it could turn out very hot. Some of them are probably showing very hot weather, similar to the GFS showing very warm conditions at the end of its run, but equally slight orientation shift, and it could be very cold. And this is why I think there is the potential for a lot of chopping and changing. Now we can see this well by going on to the ECMWF Ensembles from the Icelandic Met Office. So do you move out to day 7, 168 hours, you can see generally high pressure centered in the Atlantic, a negative NAO. That's something we're going to be starting to look at more over the next couple of months. The NAO and AO starting to come much more influential into our weather, especially as it's going to be dictating very much colder potential into the late autumn and in parts of winter. But you can see blocking in the North Atlantic and generally a northwesterly flow. But you can see 13 there in the middle of the screen, extending that high pressure over the top of us into parts of Europe, and that would subtly change the wind direction to more of us easterly. And easterlies are still quite warm this time of year. Now if we run up to day 10, that's when we'll start to see a bit more changing with the ensembles. You can see 22 or 43.1% of high pressure over the top of us, extended further northwards, low pressure sitting over Scandinavia. That would be pulling in a chilly northeasterly wind. It would still be pretty dry, but it would feel chillier. You've got another 16, including the control and operational, with high pressure over top of us, and extending further eastwards, that will be dragging in more of a easterly flow. It would be dragging in hot air around the low pressure, with thundery weather with that. Another 13 of high pressure just sent over the top of us, dragging in a southeasterly. That would be warm, maybe even heat wave-like conditions. So very, very big changes at the surface, just from subtle differences in the blocking positioning. If we do move out to 300 hours, again, massive blocking, 17 including the control, huge blocking over Greenland and Iceland. These would be amazing charts if you are a winter lover, you love the snow and the cold. This would be amazing charts for that. If we were seeing this in November to March, we would be seeing bitterly cold weather. This would be dragging in northerly winds, but being this time of year, dragging in an easterly or northeasterly, depending on exact orientation, it might not be too cold at all, but it could similarly be pretty chilly. Another 13 have very similar blocking patterns, and again would be quite chilly. Another 11 have similar blocking patterns, but the high pressure centre is further eastwards, and it would be dragging in an easterly wind. And as I said, easterly winds this time of year, Central and Eastern Europe, is still very warm. It's still mid to high 20s, even 30 degrees in some parts of Europe still. So it could still be very warm and hot. And as I said, Europe, similar to the UK, has been very, very dry this summer, so it just means that hot air over the continent is going to linger for longer into the coming autumn. So these easterly winds are going to remain pretty warm, even perhaps the next 4 to 6 weeks. And finally, you look at another 10 of a very similar pattern with big high pressure in an easterly flow. And we go right towards the end of the run, still very, very big areas of high pressure. At 17 in control run are going to a northerly wind with low pressure centre to our south. That would be quite unsettled and cold with the air coming in from the north. Another 13 just have high pressure centre over top of us. Would be trying to pull in cooler air from Scandinavia, but equally we could hold on to some warmer air from the south and stay pretty warm and dry. Another 11 have high pressure centre over Scandinavia. That would be pulling in an easterly wind. Could be quite thundery in the south and the west with low pressure centre in the Bay of Biscay, but equally it would drag in hotter air, so it could be quite warm as well. Another 10 have a northerly wind. So you can see very, very big differences at the surface from very subtle differences in the positioning of the high pressure. But the one consistency we're seeing from all these runs and all these ensemble members is it looking like a lot of high pressure blocking, potentially northern blocking, which could, as I said, cause some of these northerly winds. So as I said, we'll have to see how it does play out, but for the time being, there could be some very big conflicting scenarios as we head into early autumn, or at least end of August, early September. There is so much uncertainty, not on the pressure patterns, because those look pretty firm on, pretty much guaranteed with high pressure in and around us, but it's the wind direction, because as I said, this time of year, there's very cool air masses a few hundred miles to our north, but still very hot air masses a few hundred miles to our south. So do finish by having a look at the ensembles, but on the line charts. You can see from London, you see around average at the moment, but turning much warmer into next week. Still a bit of precipitation around, as I said, low pressure in and around us, but still very warm in those upper air temperatures, and that's why we can see mid to high 20s, maybe 30 degrees. But it's beyond that, into the last few days of August and into the start of September. There is so much spread. You can see some ensemble members have us getting towards 18 or 20 degrees at HVF HPA, which would give us low 30s. Others are towards 4 degrees or 2 degrees at 850 HPA, a good 5 degrees below average, which will give us temperatures in the mid to low teens, especially in the north, maybe in the south only high teens. And you can see the operational run there goes one of these chillier runs. So there's massive spread. There's maybe 15 degrees at 850 HPA spread between some of these ensemble members. And just shows you there is a lot of uncertainty, even though, as we saw by the ECMWF Ensemble anomaly charts, they are very, very similar in the pressure patterns. There's vast differences because of the wind direction. And you can see that by looking at the sea level pressure. Majority of the runs, you can see, are high pressure, around 1,020 to 1,030 millibars. Majority of runs there, a few in the longer term going cooler, but the majority are very high. And if we do look at the ECMWF ensembles, just to compare that over the next couple of weeks, again, very similarly warm as we head into next week. But then, massive uncertainty. As I said, some going 14 to 16 degrees at HVF HPA, even one going up above 20 degrees. That would be exceptionally hot. to start September, potentially 30 degrees there into the first couple of days of September with that, but so many others getting towards 0 degrees, so a 20 degree spread from the ECMWF Ensembles. And yes, those are the extreme runs, but even just to slightly cooler runs and slightly warmer runs, there's still a good 10 to 15 degree spread. Quite a lot of precipitation here, so ECMWF definitely has more trapped little low pressure systems and more convection going off. So it definitely does look like it's not going to be bone dry, even though there's going to be high pressure blocking around. But it just means it's probably unlikely to see massive weather fronts or any stormy conditions, which does start to become a threat as we head into the autumn. So we'll have to see how it does play out over the next couple of weeks. Definitely does look like high pressure blocking is going to be in control. Very interesting seeing that early on in the season, and we'll have to see whether that is a consistent signal, because high pressure blocking is normally not a thing that just comes around once. It's not a repeating pattern, and this is the first time we're seeing it in quite a while positioned further northwards. We've had a lot of blocking this summer with the hot weather we've had sitting over the top of us and over Europe, but not to our north, and that's what we're starting to see. So we'll have to see how it does play out. For the time being, it's not going to cause any drastic differences. It could just turn us slightly chillier instead of slightly warmer. So we'll just have to see where that wind direction does come. I do think it will be starting to get sorted out over the next few days. You can see already this coming week is starting to turn much warmer and hotter, but maybe into next weekend it could be much cooler again. And as I said, we'll just have to see how it does play out, because as you can see by these ensemble members, there is no real consistency at the moment. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you enjoy the weather over the next week or so. It is looking much more towards average sort of summer conditions. Still going to be warm and dry for some, but also going to be some rain around and some showers and maybe even some thunderstorms, so you can go out and enjoy that. Much more average sort of conditions. None of this extreme weather we have had really on and off for the past 6 weeks or so, with 40 degrees in July, extreme thunderstorms around in July and into August, and again that prolonged heat wave we saw about a week ago now, where temperatures were around that sort of 30 to mid-30 mark for a good 5 to 7 days for some. So yeah, it does look like definitely it is dying down. Can't rule out some heat towards late summer, early September, but we'll just have to see how it does play out. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.